The orbital defense platform hung like a silver needle against Earth's atmosphere, its gleaming surface masking the deadly arsenal within. Dominic Nash stood at the observation deck, watching his home planet spin slowly below. 20 years of service, 218 successful eliminations, and 0 failures had earned him this view, along with the weight of humanity's deadliest secrets. Executor Nash. The voice belonged to Director Marcus Bishop, head of the Galactic Council's Security Division. Your new assignment has arrived. Nash turned from the view, his expression neutral. The director's hologram flickered slightly in the station's artificial twilight, but his authoritative presence remained unchanged. I wasn't expecting another mission so soon. This one couldn't wait. Bishop's avatar gestured, and classified files materialized in the air between them. We've contained something unprecedented, something that could change, or end, humanity as we know it. Images flooded Nash's neural display. A secure facility buried beneath Europa's ice, containment protocols beyond anything he'd seen before, and at the center of it all, her. The alien skin shifted like aurora borealis, patterns of bioluminescence dancing beneath a translucent surface. Her eyes held something that made even Nash's enhanced combat reflexes stutter. "What is she?" he asked, maintaining his professional detachment despite the strange pull he felt looking at those eyes. "The last survivor of a species we thought we'd eliminated decades ago." Bishop's hologram moved closer, lowering his voice though they were alone. "The Luminary. They appeared during humanity's first wave of expansion, offering gifts of knowledge and technology. But their true nature was far more insidious." Nash had heard whispers about the Luminary. They were used to frighten young recruits during training. The boogeymen of space. I thought they were extinct. So did we. Bishop's expression darkened. "This one calls herself Solaris. We found her hidden in a stasis pod on a derelict ship. Initial tests suggest her psychic abilities exceed anything we've encountered. She's already compromised 3 research teams." "Compromised how?" "They tried to free her, claimed we were the monsters, not her. 2 committed suicide when we stopped them. The 3rd is still in psychiatric care." Bishop paused, studying Nash's reaction. "That's why we need you. Your psychic resistance training is the highest we've ever recorded. If anyone can study her capabilities without falling under her influence, it's you." Nash absorbed the information with practiced efficiency. Study and eliminate. "Exactly. We need to understand how she affects human consciousness, what defenses might work against her kind if there are more out there." Then, Bishop drew a finger across his throat. "Timeline. You have 2 weeks. After that, we terminate her with or without the data we need. The risk is too high to keep her alive longer." Bishop's hologram flickered again. "Captain Vale will brief you on the containment protocols when you arrive at Europa. Don't let her beauty fool you, Nash. Under that ethereal exterior is humanity's greatest threat." The briefing ended, leaving Nash alone with his thoughts and the slowly turning Earth below. In 20 years, he'd never questioned an assignment. Threats were threats, elimination was elimination. But something about those alien eyes kept drawing his attention back to the classified files. He accessed his neural link, reviewing the footage again. Solaris stood in her containment cell, surrounded by energy fields and psychic dampeners. Yet she moved with a grace that suggested she was exactly where she chose to be, as if the most secure facility in the solar system was nothing more than a temporary inconvenience. Analyzing target again. Captain Helena Vale's voice startled him. She moved silently despite her cybernetic leg, a souvenir from the Mars uprising. "That's not like you." "Standard procedure," Nash lied, closing the files. "I always study my targets thoroughly." Vale's augmented eyes scanned him with uncomfortable intensity. "Just remember what happened to the others. The Luminary don't need physical contact to get in your head. One moment of weakness, one crack in your mental defenses." "I'm not weak," Nash said flatly. Neither were the others. Vale's expression softened slightly. Just be careful, Nash. I've watched you rise from recruit to our best executor. I'd hate to lose you to her tricks. Nash nodded, but as he prepared for departure, he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be different. Something about Solaris called to him on a level deeper than thought. And for the first time in his career, he wasn't entirely sure that was a bad thing. The shuttle to Europa would take 6 hours. 6 hours to review protocols, strengthen his mental barriers, and prepare for whatever abilities Solaris might possess. But as Earth disappeared behind them, Nash found himself returning to those impossible eyes, wondering what truths or lies they might contain. He was humanity's perfect soldier, trained to resist any form of manipulation or control. But as the shuttle carried him toward his target, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered a dangerous question. What if resistance wasn't always the answer? Europa's containment facility was a marvel of engineering, carved deep into the moon's icy crust. Nash descended through layers of security, each checkpoint scanning not just his physical form but his mental patterns as well. The deeper he went, the fewer personnel he encountered, until the silence became a physical presence. The containment chamber itself was a perfect sphere of transparent diamond alloy, suspended in a larger cavity of ice. Inside, Solaris waited. She stood in the center of her prison, floating several inches above the floor, her iridescent skin casting rainbow shadows on the crystalline walls. "Dominic Nash," she said before he could speak, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. They sent their perfect soldier to study the monster. Nash maintained his emotional barriers, approaching the sphere with measured steps. "You know my name. I know many things." Solaris opened her eyes, and Nash felt his breath catch. It wasn't just that they contained stars. It was that they contained familiar stars, constellations he dreamed about but never seen. "Your thoughts echo loudly, despite your training. The containment field should prevent any telepathic contact," Nash said, checking the control panel readings. Solaris smiled, and patterns of light danced beneath her skin. "Should it? Or is that just what they told you to believe?" Nash activated the recording protocols, determined to maintain professional distance. "We'll begin with basic capability assessment. The previous research teams saw the truth," she interrupted, "and it broke them because they weren't ready. But you," she drifted closer to the sphere's wall. "You've always known something was wrong, haven't you? Always felt that emptiness after each perfect execution." "Stay out of my head," Nash warned, but his voice lacked its usual steel. "I'm not in your head, Dominic. I'm looking at what you broadcast like signal flares. The doubt, the questions you never let yourself ask." Solaris pressed one delicate hand against the barrier. "Why you think they chose you? Not for your resistance, but for your potential." Nash found himself stepping closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. The patterns in her skin shifted, forming shapes that seemed almost like writing. "What potential?" "To see beyond the lies they've wrapped around humanity like chains." Her voice softened. "Your people were meant for so much more than this endless cycle of fear and violence." "You compromised 3 research teams," Nash reminded himself as much as her. "Drove them to madness or suicide." Solaris's expression filled with sadness. "Is that what they told you? Ask yourself, why would we share technology, knowledge, culture with humanity only to drive them mad? What would we gain?" She moved in perfect parallel to his pacing. "The truth is in the files you haven't seen, the records they keep locked away. Your Captain Vale knows. Why do you think she warned you so specifically about me?" Nash's steps faltered. Vale's warning had been oddly personal, now that he thought about it. And there were gaps in the mission files, inconsistencies he'd noticed but dismissed. "You're trying to manipulate me." "No." Solaris's skin pulsed with patterns that matched his heartbeat. "I'm trying to wake you up. The others woke too fast, couldn't handle the sudden awareness of what humanity could become. But you're different. You question. You see patterns. You feel the wrongness in what you've been told. And what exactly have I been told? Nash found himself asking, professional distance crumbling in the face of her certainty. That we're monsters. That we try to invade minds, control populations, drive people insane. Her star-filled eyes captured his. But think, Dominic, in all the records you've seen, all the briefings you've attended, have you ever found a single case of a luminary actually killing anyone? The question hit him like a physical blow. She was right. For all the warnings about the luminary being humanity's greatest threat, he'd never seen evidence of them causing direct harm. The psychological incidents were well documented, but the details were always vague, the timing inconsistent. The first contact protocols, he said slowly, pieces falling into place. They're classified beyond even my clearance. Why would peaceful first contact need that level of security? Now you're asking the right questions. Solaris smiled, and for a moment, Nash could have sworn he saw the entire universe in that expression. But be careful who you ask them to. The Council has killed to keep these secrets. A warning chime indicated the end of the session. Nash stepped back, struggling to regain his professional demeanor, but Solaris had one last thing to say. Your dreams, Dominic, the ones about distant stars and impossible connections, they're not dreams. They're memories. Memories of what humanity was meant to become before they lock your potential away behind walls of fear. Nash left the containment chamber with his mind racing. Every step of his training told him to dismiss her words as manipulation, to focus on his mission and eliminate the threat. But something deeper, something that felt like truth, kept drawing him back to those star-filled eyes and the questions they awakened. In his quarters, he accessed the mission files again, looking not at what they contained but at what they didn't. The gaps became obvious once he knew to look for them. Entire sections of the first contact records were missing. The psychological incident reports showed clear signs of editing. His neural link chimed with an incoming message from Vale. Meet me in training room 7. No surveillance. We need to talk. Nash stared at the message for a long moment, remembering Solaris's words about his captain. Whatever game was being played here, he was starting to suspect he wasn't just an observer. He was a key piece on the board. And for the first time in his career, he wasn't sure whose side he was really on. Training Room 7 was located in the deepest level of Europa's facility, its walls lined with quantum dampening fields that blocked all forms of surveillance. Captain Vale waited inside, her cybernetic eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. When the door sealed behind Nash, she immediately activated additional security protocols. You've started asking questions, she said without preamble. Good, but you're not asking them fast enough. Nash studied his mentor carefully. You know something about the luminary. Something not in the official records. I know everything about them. Vale's organic eye held a mixture of pain and determination. Because I was there during first contact. The real first contact, not the sanitized version they fed to the history books. She pressed her palm to a hidden scanner, and a holographic display sprang to life between them. Nash recognized the ship design immediately. It was luminary, but not a derelict. The vessel was pristine, its crystalline architecture glowing with internal light. 25 years ago, Vale began. They came to us openly. No hidden agendas, no secret invasions. They offered us something unprecedented. The key to unlocking humanity's true potential. The display shifted, showing human brain scans before and after contact with the luminary. The differences were striking. Neural pathways lighting up in impossible patterns, dormant regions suddenly blazing with activity. They didn't want to control us, Vale continued. They wanted to awaken us. Humans who worked closely with them began developing abilities we'd thought impossible. Telepathy, yes, but also something deeper, a fundamental shift in consciousness itself. The Council claimed those abilities drove people insane, Nash said, but even as he spoke, he knew it wasn't true. The Council lied. Vale's voice hardened. The abilities weren't driving people insane. They were making them impossible to control. Imagine it, Nash. A population that could share thoughts freely, that could feel each other's pain and joy, that could no longer be manipulated by propaganda or fear. What happens to power structures in a world like that? The implications hit Nash like a physical blow. The council ordered the luminary eliminated to maintain control. Not just eliminated, erased. Vale waved her hand, and new images appeared. Classified military operations, manufactured evidence, carefully orchestrated incidents blamed on luminary influence. They created a false narrative of alien hostility, then used it to justify genocide. Those of us who knew the truth were given a choice: stay quiet or join the luminary in extinction. Nash's mind raced, connecting dots he should have seen before. The psychological incidents in the colonies. Staged. Vale's organic eye burned with old anger. The council caused the chaos, blamed it on luminary influence, then used that as justification for their purge. They even developed specialized technology to suppress the awakened abilities in humans who'd had contact. Why do you think every citizen is required to undergo regular neural health screenings? The revelation staggered Nash. Every 3 months, without fail, he'd submitted to those screenings. He'd never questioned why they were necessary, just as he'd never questioned so many other things. "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked. "Why not when they first assigned me to Solaris?" "Because you weren't ready." Vale moved closer, lowering her voice. "The council chose you for this mission because your psychic resistance is off the charts. But what they don't understand is that your resistance isn't about blocking abilities. It's about controlling them. You're already awakened, Nash. You always have been." The words resonated with something deep inside him, something that had always felt slightly out of reach. The dreams of distant stars, the intuitions that had kept him alive on countless missions, the emptiness he felt after each execution. "Solaris knows," he said softly. "Of course she does. Why do you think they're so desperate to eliminate her? She's not just the last of her kind. She's living proof of what humanity could become. What we were meant to become." A warning klaxon shattered the moment. Red emergency lights began pulsing as Vale's cybernetic eyes widened in alarm. "They're moving up the timeline," she said urgently. "Bishop must suspect." "Nash, listen to me. Everything you think you know about your purpose here is wrong. You're not here to study Solaris. You're here because you're like her. The council planned to eliminate both of you once they confirmed the connection." "What connection?" Nash demanded, but deep down, he already knew. The ability to awaken others safely, gradually, without the psychological trauma that comes from sudden awareness. You and Solaris together could undo everything the council has worked to maintain. That's why. The door exploded inward. Lieutenant James Warren stood in the smoke, his elite strike team fanning out behind him. Their black armor seemed to absorb the emergency lights, making them look like shadows given form. "Step away from the executor, Captain," Warren ordered, his weapon trained on Vale's head. "The council sends their regards." Nash's combat instincts screamed for action, but Vale's next words froze him in place. "Get to Solaris," she whispered. "Remember what I showed you. Remember who you really are." Then she smiled, pressed something small and cold into his hand, and charged the strike team. The last thing Nash saw before diving through the secondary exit was Vale's cybernetic eyes blazing with impossible light as she gave him the chance to escape. The sound of weapons fire followed him into the corridor, along with the growing certainty that everything he believed about himself, his mission, and humanity's future had been built on carefully constructed lies. And now those lies were beginning to crumble. The facility's emergency lighting bathed the corridors in crimson as Nash ran, Vale's final gift clutched in his hand. A quantum key capable of overriding any security system in the complex. His neural implants screamed warnings about pursuit, but something else screamed louder. a pull toward the containment sphere that felt like gravity itself. Nash. Director Bishop's voice echoed through the facility's comm system. Stand down. You're being influenced by the alien. We can still help you if you surrender now. Help him. Nash almost laughed as he vaulted over a security barrier. They'd been helping humanity for decades, helping keep them blind, helping keep them controlled, helping keep them from becoming what they were meant to be. The object Vale had pressed into his hand grew warm, responding to his thoughts. In that moment, memories he didn't know he had began to surface. A younger version of himself, displaying unusual abilities during training. Secret tests. Modifications disguised as routine upgrades. They hadn't been suppressing his abilities. They'd been trying to weaponize them. Think about what you're doing, Bishop continued, his voice taking on an edge of desperation. Everything we've done has been to protect humanity, to maintain order. Without control, there is only chaos. Nash reached the level above the containment sphere just as a squad of security forces emerged from the elevator. Without conscious thought, he felt their intentions before they could act. His body moved through their attacks like water flowing around rocks, each dodge perfectly timed, each counter-strike precisely placed. He'd always attributed his combat prowess to training, but now he understood. He'd been reading minds all along. Impressive. Lieutenant Warren's voice came from behind him as Nash approached the containment chamber's main entrance. But then you always were our best experiment. Nash turned to find Warren and his strike team blocking the corridor, their weapons trained on his position. Experiment. Why do you think they paired you with Vale? Warren's smile was cold. She helped design the program, the perfect synthesis of human potential and absolute loyalty. At least that was the theory. She showed me the truth. She showed you what the alien wanted you to see. Think, Nash. You're smarter than this. If the Luminary were so peaceful, why did they resist when we tried to contain them? Why did they fight back? They didn't. The certainty in Nash's voice surprised even him. That's why they're gone. They chose extinction over violence, all except one. Warren's finger tightened on his trigger. And now you'll choose the same. The quantum key pulsed in Nash's hand, resonating with something in his mind. Time seemed to slow as his awakened consciousness expanded. He could feel Warren's hatred, his fear of what he didn't understand. Could feel the strike team's uncertainty, their blind loyalty programmed through years of conditioning. And below, burning like a star in his awareness, he felt Solaris. No, Nash said softly. I choose something else. He moved before Warren's finger could complete its squeeze, his enhanced awareness guiding him through the gaps in their firing lines. The quantum key flared, overloading the corridor's security systems in a cascade of sparks. Nash dove through the chaos, his mind already reaching out to the containment sphere's controls. Alarms blared as he reached the chamber. Through the diamond alloy walls, Solaris waited, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing in sync with his racing heart. Their eyes met, and Nash felt the last of his doubts fade away. You knew, he said as he approached the control panel. You knew what I was from the beginning. I knew what you could become. Solaris's voice carried even through the barrier. What humanity could become, if given the chance. Don't. Bishop's voice boomed through the chamber. Nash, the containment field is the only thing preventing her from infecting the entire facility. Think about your duty, your loyalty. My duty, Nash interrupted, is to truth. He slammed the quantum key into the control panel. My loyalty is to humanity's potential, not its chains. The containment field flickered as Nash's awakened abilities merged with the key's technology. In that moment of vulnerability, he felt Solaris's mind touch his fully for the first time. Images flooded his consciousness. The Luminaries' peaceful first contact, their patient teaching, their sadness as they watched humanity's leaders choose fear over evolution. He saw the truth of Vale's words, felt the weight of decades of suppression and control. But more than that, he saw what could still be. Humanity awakened, not to chaos, but to connection. Consciousness expanding not through force, but through choice. The future the Council feared, not because it was dangerous, but because it would make their power obsolete. The strike team breached the chamber just as the containment field began to collapse. Warren's voice rang out, ordering Nash to step away from the controls. Behind him, Bishop arrived with another security team, their weapons humming with lethal energy. Nash stood in the middle, physically between humanity's past and its possible future. The choice Vale had prepared him for, that his entire life had led to, crystallized in that moment of crisis. And as Solaris reached for him through the failing barrier, her star-filled eyes holding both invitation and warning, Nash finally understood. This wasn't just about saving her. It wasn't even about exposing the Council's lies. This was about evolution itself, about whether humanity would remain trapped in its chrysalis of fear or finally spread its wings and fly. One last chance, Nash, Bishop called. Make the right choice. Nash smiled, reached back towards Solaris, and did exactly that. The moment Nash's hand met Solaris through the failing barrier, the universe exploded in his mind. Colors he had no names for cascaded through his consciousness as their abilities merged, amplifying each other beyond anything the Council had predicted. The containment field shattered in a shower of crystalline shards, but instead of falling, they hung suspended in the air, catching rainbow light from Solaris's luminescent skin. Take them down, Warren ordered, but his strike team hesitated. They could feel it too, the wave of awakening consciousness radiating from the connected pair. Your minds were never meant to be caged. Solaris's voice echoed both physically and mentally, her words carrying truth that bypassed all conditioning. Feel what you've been denied. Remember who you were meant to be. The security force's rigid mental barriers, programmed through years of neural health screenings, began to crack. Some dropped their weapons, overwhelmed by the sudden expansion of awareness. Others fired wildly, their shots deflected by the floating crystal shards as Nash and Solaris's combined abilities turned the very air into a protective barrier. Stop them. Bishop's command crackled with desperate fury. Initiate facility purge. Better to lose the base than let her infect. His words cut off as Nash reached out with his newly awakened power, gently but firmly shutting down the director's neural implants. No more lies, Nash said softly. No more fear. The facility's artificial gravity fluctuated as Nash and Solaris's combined consciousness spread through its systems. Emergency lights shifted from red to a soft violet that pulsed in rhythm with their shared heartbeats. Through their connection, Nash could feel the truth of what humanity had lost, and what it could still become. You don't understand what you're doing, Bishop gasped, fighting against the wave of expanded awareness. The human mind isn't ready for this level of connection. We'll lose everything we've built. We'll lose the walls we've built, Solaris corrected, her star-filled eyes now blazing like supernovas. The artificial barriers between minds, between hearts, between what is and what could be. Warren, still resistant through his enhanced mental shielding, raised his pulse rifle. I won't let you destroy everything we fought to protect. Nash felt the lieutenant's finger tighten on the trigger a millisecond before he fired. Time seemed to slow as he and Solaris moved in perfect synchronization, their combined abilities turning the energy blast into a shower of harmless light. Look, Nash said to his former colleague, letting him feel the truth through their expanding connection. Really look at what you're protecting. Images flowed through the chamber, the Council's secret labs where they developed more efficient ways to suppress human consciousness, the fabricated evidence used to demonize the luminary, the countless minds stunted and denied their true potential. But beneath that, deeper memories stirred. The wonder of first contact, the joy of minds touching minds, the infinite possibilities that had been buried under layers of manufactured fear. Warren's rifle clattered to the floor as decades of conditioning crumbled in the face of undeniable truth. Around the chamber, other soldiers were experiencing similar awakenings, their rigid mental barriers dissolving not in madness, but in understanding. This is what they feared, Solaris said, her voice carrying infinite compassion. Not that humanity would be destroyed, but that it would transform into something beyond control, beyond the reach of fear and manipulation. Through their deepening connection, Nash felt the change spreading beyond the chamber, racing through the facility's neural networks and communication systems. The truth could no longer be contained, just as consciousness itself could no longer be caged. Bishop, still fighting against the tide of awakening, reached for his emergency beacon. Earth command. Initiate orbital strike. Authorization. No more death, Nash said, extending his awareness to encompass the director. No more running from what we can become. The beacon crumbled to dust as their combined abilities continued to grow, reaching beyond the facility, beyond Europa's icy crust, touching other minds across the solar system. Not forcing awareness, but offering it. Not demanding evolution, but inviting it. In that moment of transformation, Nash finally understood what Vale had sacrificed herself to protect. This wasn't just about freedom from the Council's control. It was about humanity's next step. Not taken alone, but hand in hand with those who had tried to guide them decades ago. They'll try to stop this, Warren whispered, his awakened mind grappling with the implications. Earth Command, the other facilities. Let them try. Nash smiled, feeling Solaris's unwavering presence beside him. You can't stop evolution. You can only choose to embrace it or be left behind. As if in response, new minds began to touch theirs, other awakened humans who had hidden their abilities for years, waiting for this moment. The luminary's gift, buried but never truly lost, blossoming once again across human consciousness. The chamber filled with light as Nash and Solaris began their real work, not destroying the old world, but building a bridge to the new one. Together, they would help humanity navigate the challenging path of awakening, ensuring that this time, fear would not triumph over potential. Ready? Solaris asked, her hand still clasped in his, their minds dancing among the stars. Nash nodded, feeling not just his own certainty, but the growing chorus of awakened minds joining their cause. Ready. And in the depths of Europa, beneath the ice and steel and lies, humanity's next chapter began, not with violence or control, but with a simple choice to become something more than the sum of its fears. The perfect soldier had finally found his true mission. The last luminary had found her true purpose. And together, they would help humanity find its true destiny among the stars.